Just when I was working on my own Super 8 film restoration,
my 80-year-old neighbor was told by my wife what I was working on.
Needless to say, she jumped on it, asking if I could have a look at her old wedding film. It turned out not to be a Super 8 but a Standard 8 film, as you can see here from the different perforations and the small center spindle dimension of the reel. No way I could digitize this myself, lest to play it on my projector. Meanwhile, I had anyways teamed up with Daniele Carrer of telecinema.com to get more into the gory details of Super 8 film restoration. Obsolete computer technology is my passion. I'm the vintage collector and these are my stories. So while I did have a chance to digitize my film reels using that old reflector scanner, I soon realized that the quality would be mediocre at best. But I still wanted to pursue it, and if only to see and learn what it takes for a do-it-yourself restoration. Still, my investigation eventually led me to Daniele Carrer of telecinema.com, who has built himself an immense knowledge and expertise on 8, 9 and 16mm film restoration over the years, after he himself worked for years as a film editor for TV. Daniele eventually also provided archive footage for productions to BBC, Amazon Prime, HBO and even Netflix.
Degna di rispetto della finzione neorealistica della Mean Street di Martin Scorsese o delle cronache un po' schierate che sono arrivate ai giorni nostri direttamente da quell'America dell'anno della rielezione di Nixon.
Il telecinema.it e Daniele Carrer presentano Super 8.
And then you came along asking to digitize your family films.
Indeed, and that's what Daniele makes a living from, charging €4 per minute of footage.
So in my case, having the 3 reels equated to roughly 50 minutes of footage.
Consisting of a total of €200. And to be fully transparent, this is not sponsored content at all. I paid Daniele in full for his work, although he then also provided me with some hints and details on film restorations while I was trying to replicate his work. And Daniele also provided me with the raw scans he did, so I can really drill down and compare between a high-end scan result and the low-end results coming out of the reflector scanner. As for the latter, you get a bunch of image files, 1 per frame. Now, the reflector software will of course assemble these image files into an AVI file ready. But if you choose to keep the single image files, you gain additional options for post-processing. You could, for example, open up the images in a processing software like ffmpeg.
You're not honestly telling me you'd be doing individual frame-by-frame corrections manually?
One could, but we're talking thousands of images here. But using a batch job, one could apply automatic color correction. And thereafter, using ffmpeg, you could create the 18 FPS rendered video yourself. But the catch is, 18 FPS is not state of the art, and when working with that footage in a full HD 25 FPS video, you end up with a choppy playback that is also off timing. This is where frame interpolation comes into play. With frame interpolation, the 18 frames per second can be artificially stretched to 25 by either copying frames or creating merge frames, a procedure that Daniele also explains on his website. This can also be achieved using ffmpeg, leading to an overall smoother playback on 25 FPS. But as you can see here, there's quite a visible difference when it comes to the color correction. While the film created from the auto-corrected still images looks already better than the original film as rendered out from the reflector software, there's still a huge bump in quality when we look at the footage captured by Daniele Carrer. So a takeaway is definitely to rather apply the color correction in the video editor instead, and rather scene by scene instead of frame by frame. But still, there's ultimately no way around also going into manual correction, as it's not enough to just apply the automatic tone correction either. Having said that, it's definitely better to have the film captured frame by frame in a neutral way, which I believe for the reflector scanner would be the cold white image scan. But, and even with that setting applied, one can see the difference how the reflector scanner will not be fully neutral. Of course, it also depends on the source material and the original lighting conditions, so post-correction is simply a must. And let's also talk quickly about the image resolution, which for this still frame is 1192 by 876 pixels, which is close to, but not exactly, HD ready, 1280 by 720 pixels, and not even close to Full HD 1920 by 1080 resolution. So that means whatever I take out from the reflector scan, either the rendered movie or the still frames, must be extrapolated for both 720p and 1080p resolutions. This is in huge contrast to the professional scanner by Daniele Carrer, which not only captures the entire raw frame as shown here, but can capture at up to 4000 by 3000 pixels. My Super 8 frames were processed at native 1080p resolution, which just makes it a little bit more crisp, and as you can see from the color tone, it's much more neutral than what I got out of the reflector scanner. And of course that means much less loss in quality, as it's not just bluntly interpolating pixels.
Alright, but what about those blemishes there?
That's not uncommon for old films. One thing for certain is dirt and dust that accumulates on a film. And honestly, I didn't clean the film before scanning, as I didn't have the expertise to do so. But Daniele did, so his scan didn't have any of the dirt and dust. But still, there's these visible blemishes there, which is caused by deterioration of the film material, and no cleaning whatsoever can remove that. But you can, to some extent, remove it using software like Neat Video. That's the same plugin that also Daniele uses for his restoration, and I just happen to have it as well, as I used it for an earlier project. The thing is, applying a denoise filter may remove distortions like that. But here as well, you can't simply apply it scene by scene, but must also adapt it frame by frame. And even by doing so, it may catch things like the fabric structure of the sofa and soften it too much, so you may lose too much detail. In the end, I decided to not go applying the denoise filter at all, as it alters the appearance of the film material too much and takes away some of its identity. Whatever I do, there's no way I will get cinema quality out of this old footage anyways. And while plugins like Neat Video can also to some extent remove scratches, there's also a small trick that you can use yourself to remove scratches without an expensive software add-on. So if you have identified this segment with the defect or scratch, you can simply copy this same frame atop of the original frame. Then apply a freehand mask to the copied frame and draw it around the damaged area. Check the inverse mask flag to match the inside of the marked area so the original frame on the bottom shines through. Then transform the underlying frame and move it around until a non-damaged area fills out the cutout of the mask. You can play around with the size and the edge settings of the mask to smoothen the edges, and eventually the damaged area will be disappearing. It's still tedious, but can be more effective to fix disturbing scratches and damaged areas than going over with an improvement plugin. Your mileage may vary, and it really depends how much of an issue it is for you. In my case, I only had to fix a few areas during the first minutes of the footage, as the film was only damaged on the outer areas. Still, not all films age the same way, and quality of storage, but also the original film material matters a lot. See here the footage of my neighbor's wedding ceremony from 1962, which actually looks a lot better than my own films, which were taken roughly 20 years later. And while applying white balancing and color correction can already do a lot to these old films, the question remains what one could do if colors are lost over time. Now, the short answer is, if the color is gone, it's gone, and there's no easy way to bring it back. Or is it? Well, at least one technology is known to exist which was developed by BBC. They used artifacts coming from chroma keying, the so-called chroma dots, to recolorize old black and white footage. But it's darn expensive and not easily available to hobbyists like me. And while I didn't find any ready-to-use video plugins, I came across online services which claim to be able to recolorize images. So out of curiosity, I went with this still frame here and converted it to all grayscale. Then I let it run through image2go.com's filter, which then actually gave me this. And while it totally wasn't able to recover all the colors, still something interesting happened as to why the algorithm thinks the jacket I'm wearing here was pink.
Come on, never in my life is this pink.
And how it is. So how could the algorithm know this? Possibly it was simply a trained machine learning algorithm and deducting, baby must have a pink jacket, hence it painted it pink. Interesting, but certainly not a very efficient way to colorize your images, as you would need to do this frame by frame and the outcome is very likely of more than questionable quality. But I also found an interesting project that I didn't venture into any further. However, it goes by applying the same technique, combining with AI to colorize individual video frames in a batch. Check out the video sample on YouTube showcasing the final result for Doctor Who.
To explore now then.
And so what does it mean for this alien film reel I have, which exposes a prominent red tint? Of course, I could decompose the individual frames, convert to grayscale and have the algorithm run through. And maybe I should give it really a shot. On the other side, I can reduce the red tint by applying some color correction in Final Cut already. Then throw in some sharpening and even Neat Video's denoise filter, which gives it some obvious improvement. But after all, while I can improve it a bit, I'll never be able to fully recover the colors, or even recover lost image detail and image bleeding, or even bring it closely to the level of detail even when compared to the DVD's reference material.
So in the end, I was using Daniele Carrer's captured footage to continue my work and not the copies I digitized using this cheap reflector scanner. When it comes to archiving your 8mm film treasures, do it yourself may be totally okay if you're good with okay results. But if it really means something to you, have it digitized by a professional like Daniele with his professional digitizing gear and continue from there. In most cases the outcome will be far better and you'll save a lot of time already, so you can focus in creating your film, adding music and even narration, and not so much on the actual restoration procedure. Of course, a professional in video restoration would have probably gotten out far better results even from my own do-it-yourself digitized film footage. I admittedly didn't go the last mile, but just deep enough to understand the efforts and the pitfalls for any such historic film restoration project. What's your opinion? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, I'm the Vintage Collector and this was my story on the Super 8 family film restoration. And I'm eagerly looking forward to show the final results to my family on Christmas Eve. Thanks for watching and see you again next Sunday.